John Cobelt Show, KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. We're on from 1 until 4, then after 4 o'clock, John Cobelt Show on demand. It's a podcast, and listen to what you missed. Moist line, 877-MOIST-86. We have a lot of room. 877-MOIST-86. It's Wednesday, so get in there now. That's also 877-664-7886. We are going to talk with Todd Bensman. Todd Bensman is a senior national security fellow, the Center for Immigration Studies. He's a journalist. He's normally based in Texas. He spends a lot of time at the border. He's written a book called Overrun, How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in U.S. History. And he's got another piece of the puzzle today to talk about. According to a story he also wrote in the New York Post, the United Nations, taking in part U.S. tax money, is funneling aid to illegals in transit to the border through all these, what they call NGOs, non-government organizations. We'll explain what those are. But your tax money is ending up in the hands of illegal aliens while they're on the train to the U.S. to cross the border illegally. Hard to believe. Todd Bensman is going to give us the story. Todd, welcome again.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me again.
How does this work?
Well, the United Nations has agencies that specialize in refugees and immigration and immigrants. They fancy themselves as protectors and supporters of the vulnerable, on the presumption that people are on the move because they're fleeing certain death, that kind of thing. And the United Nations, it turns out, is very active and present all along the migration trails in Latin America. They have been for years handing out cash debit cards and money all along the trails, as well as food and shelter and clothing, being helped along by private philanthropic migrant protection groups, NGOs, non-governmental organizations. And a lot of that I kind of picked up a few years ago, just sort of reporting down there where, people were, they were being handed gift cards, basically, or, cash debit cards. I'm like, what's this? And I reported it. And I was called a liar and making it up. And even though I had video and photos, but now the United Nations has just published its budget for 2024. It's online and anybody can get it. The budget is calling for $1.59 billion for 2024 in cash and transportation assistance, shelter, rent assistance, clothing, medical treatment.
And this is on the way in. This is along their route to the U.S.
Yes, and they plan to give, for example, $329 million in cash to 624,000 immigrants that they know are on their way to the U.S., passing illegally through a bunch of different countries. They plan to hand out millions of dollars in what they call, $25 million in what they call humanitarian transportation, which is, buses and minivans and taxis and whatnot across borders. The document is 130 pages of very granular detail of who they plan to help, where the aid will be given out, hundreds of millions of dollars in aid at way stations in 15 different Latin American countries plus Mexico, handed out by 248 aid organizations known as NGOs.
By the way, we're broadcasting all this on Instagram right now, so if you want to get on Instagram, you could see this conversation. We've got Todd Bensman on from the Center for Immigration Studies. All this U.S. tax money is being used. Is this money that we've given to the United Nations? How are they getting a hold of our tax funds?
Well, the United States has always been the primary donor nation for the United Nations since it was established after World War II. We still give the vast majority of all the dollars that fund the United Nations. So the presumption is, of course, that quite a lot of this money is going to be U.S. tax money. They're also raising it from private individuals all over the world. They've got a big campaign going, for small donations. They'll take donations from anywhere and anyone. It usually is provided to the UN through the State Department. The White House controls that, and then also there's congressional packages that go in our spending bills for the United Nations every year for decades.
I mean, it seems like there's a secret underground world, and they are conspiring to send as many illegal immigrants to this country, which is destabilizing all our big cities, causing chaos. There's obviously plenty of criminals coming in, terrorists, most likely. It's just astonishing that you have all these worldwide organizations, all these other countries, everybody's in on it. And suppose they presume, or their cover story is that all these migrants are fleeing some kind of terrible oppression. But the truth is, when they apply for asylum, most of the time their asylum claims are rejected. Judges aren't believing their stories.
Yeah, they're not asylum. They're not legitimate, eligible asylum claimants. They're economic migrants. They'll be the first ones to tell you when you're down there on the trail, yeah, I'm coming to make some money and send it home to my family. And so it's really just, there's a lot of irony in the fact that the U.S. is funding its own border crisis, right? That's sort of the...
Well, that's bottom line here is we're paying to have our borders violated 3 million times a year.
Well, and actually the number of immigrants that they're hoping to help is 3 million in 2024 in 15 different countries. And by the way, the document that I'm referring to, which I link to in my piece at CIS.org, Center for Immigration Studies.org, a version of this ran in the New York Post, acknowledges it's all being done wittingly. The authors of the document acknowledge that most of the people that they're planning to help are illegally present and illegally on the move and plan to stage illegal crossings of the U.S. border. They don't even try to hide it.
So all the other countries that encompass the United Nations, they all have given their tacit approval for this operation, and so has the Biden administration, obviously. Everybody's in on it. There's a funding mechanism to keep all the illegal migrants content and comfortable as they take their trips into America.
Right. And, the point of this from the perspective of the United Nations, and I have interviewed some of their officials about this, is that, we think that they're coming no matter what. They're going to come no matter what. They have no choice because they're under a death threat, every last one of them. And
well, that's a lie, though.
Right, yeah. And therefore, we feel like, we have to make sure that, we don't let anybody die along the way on their flight out. All
right, that's their cover story. But it looks like what they're really pushing here is some kind of global socialism, where they want to attract 3 million poor people a year and send them to the United States and let the wealthy United States give them jobs and housing and schooling and medical care. This is a big charity project that we've been given the responsibility for. Todd, are you there?
Notion that, implicit in the document is this notion that people have an absolute right to move wherever they want. Borders are cruel and inhumane and are wrong. And it speaks of nations that are trying to stop it. as a negative force, a negative factor, as something that has to be contended with, and that they have to support people while they're being blocked from this or that country. The policy, when a country along the way enacts something, it's sort of written as though it's a negative thing. So you can kind of pick up the tone of the budget doc. It's 130 pages. And I would urge people to go and read it. And also, the 248 NGOs are listed. And I link to all of them. And you can see, I mean, a whole bunch of them, reside in the United States. These are U.S. Organizations. There's also a lot of international ones, too. 15 UN agencies are involved in handing out the cash and food and everything else. I mean, really.
Are they targeting any other country's borders? Just ours?
No, the document notes that there are many countries along the way that don't want them people crossing illegally, but that's something that just has to be overcome. And the aid and assistance is necessary while they are overcoming those. The people have to be sustained so that they can, overcome those borders and police forces, that sort of thing.
All right, Todd.
And you can,
I hate to interrupt, but thank you for coming on. I just have to get on to the news. That is a really shocking report. That's really unbelievable. Thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah.
All right,
Sure.
Todd Bensman for the Center for Immigration Studies. Deborah Mark live in the KFI 24-hour news.